last night we caught a subtle glimpse into Obama's spread the wealth mentality.
Those of us who have done very well in this country to contribute a little bit more, and everybody's getting a fair shot, and everybody's getting a fair share. Hey, everybody's doing a fair share, and everybody's playing by the same rules.
Everyone getting their fair share. Well, our next guest argues that if Obama wins in November, he will systematically redistribute the wealth of America's suburbs to the cities. Stanley Kurtz is here. He's the author of Spreading the Wealth, How Obama is Robbing the Suburbs to Pay for the Cities. I think it's one of the most important books I've read this year. And Stanley, when I think about it, one word comes to mind: chilling. It really disturbed me to my core, and I think everyone needs to read this. What you say, and your basic message here is President Obama intends to abolish the suburbs. That's your words, abolish the suburbs. Explain.
Well, Eric, I know it might sound hard to believe to say that President Obama wants to abolish the suburbs, but for nearly 2 decades, Barack Obama has been a huge supporter of a movement whose goal is to have city governments swallow up and control suburban governments. The idea here is to somehow let cities get a hold of that suburban tax money. So the bottom line, as you said, is that Barack Obama wants to redistribute the wealth of America's suburbs to the cities, and this is a big part of what his second term would be about.
Yeah, it's interesting. Last night, one of the first things I think about that, Stanley, we talk about literally morphing suburbs and cities into one. You call it in the book kind of like mini Manhattans. One of the things that would be most affected, obviously, are those great suburban school districts. He talked about education last night in the debate, did the president. How would school districts be affected by this plan?
Well, Eric, Americans really don't realize, even now, that Barack Obama has gone a long way toward killing off local control of America's schools. He bragged in the debate last night about 45 and 46 states signing on to his programs. He didn't really explain what that was. Barack Obama has created a national curriculum. This really isn't going to hit the consciousness of Americans until a second term. But 46 states, 45 or 46, have signed on to this national curriculum. It's going to be a far-left curriculum. It's going to dumb down standards. And once Obama consolidates his control over the curriculum, he's going to use that to force a redistribution of suburban school spending to the cities. The way he's going to do that is same way he's been using this race to the top funding that he mentioned again and again last night. He's going to say, hey, if you want your federal education aid, you're going to have to start equalizing the funding of school districts within your state. No one knows this is coming. I write about it in the book. It's going to be a big surprise, a nasty surprise for American suburbanites.
Now, a lot of people say, come on, Kurtz, you're being conspiratorial, you're an alarmist. Some of his biggest supporters are the president's, are suburbanites. Wealthy, secular-minded suburbanites, some of his biggest funders, supporters. So tell us a bit more about it, some of the facts, and tell us about a group called Building One America that is pivotal to this plan.
Well, Eric, the reason I wrote the book is because Barack Obama is looking to these middle-class suburban voters as the key. They are the swing voters who are going to put him over the top if he can get there. And so I wrote the book to let them know that he is actually after their money to redistribute it. Now, we already saw some video clips come out of Obama in previous years saying, well, we don't want to build highways in the suburbs. Your listeners might not
We have that clip right now, Stanley. I don't mean to interrupt you. Let's go to that clip right now. 2007 speech at Hampton University. Barack Obama talking about spreading the wealth.
We need additional federal public transportation dollars flowing to the highest need communities. We don't need to build more highways out in the suburbs if we have people in the cities right now who want to work but have no way to get into those jobs. We've got to help connect them to the jobs that exist. We should be investing in minority-owned businesses in our neighborhoods so people don't have to travel for miles away.
So Stanley, he is encouraging, with this plan, he wants to not encourage, force people basically to move out of the suburbs, the exurbs, the American dream. Hey, move out to the burbs, buy a nice single home with a nice yard for your kids to run around. The American dream, he wants to snatch that away and force people to move back into the cities or into the inner ring suburbs around the cities.
Well, that's right, and that's a way of getting that tax money to flow into the coffers of city governments. But there was yet another video clip that came out yesterday, just before the debate. Your listeners might not have heard about this. It didn't get as much publicity. And in that clip, it goes back to the point you raised about schools. There, Barack Obama said in an address in 2002 that our system of funding local schooling based on local property taxes is fundamentally unjust. And what I show in the book is that he's already laid down a lot of policy tracks to try to change all that, again, by withholding federal money. But this group you mentioned, Building One America, is working with Obama today in the White House.
And they were guests at the White House in July 2011, as you document in the book.
Exactly. And the leaders of this group are some of the very same radical Saul Alinsky-style community
the Chicago
organizers.
gang.
The very people who trained and mentored Obama all those years ago in Chicago. Now, people say when you bring all that up, it's all in the past.
Yeah.
But the truth, as I show in the book, is these same community organizers are working with Obama today in the White House, holding meetings in the White House where they're bringing in local officials from throughout the country to try to lobby them to pass this anti-suburban program in their states. This is happening right now, and Obama's policies, like something called the Sustainable Communities Initiative, they are being shaped by these organizers and the top people who work for those organizers. This is a huge area of policy in the Obama administration, but it hasn't gotten publicity. It's been under the radar. It's happening now. It's a link between Obama's radical past, the present, and his plans for a second-term future.
And Stanley, basically, his vendetta, as you write, against the suburbs is based on, look, suburbanites are greedy. It's maybe even racist to move out to the suburbs. You're leaving poor people in the inner cities in need. Is that kind of the idea? One of the main ideas behind this really Alinskyite initiative.
Absolutely, Eric. You know, it's 180 degrees different the way Obama and his community organizing mentors think than the classic American dream. Classic American dream, you scrimp and you save. You pull yourself up into the middle class so that you can afford that home with a lawn, the kind of schools you want to raise your kids. That is the greatest anti-poverty program ever created. It's the American dream. But from the perspective of these organizers, literally they say the American dream of the suburbs is built on racism and greed. They literally want to reverse this by forcing suburbanites to move back to the cities. So that clip about not building suburban highways is very literal. This program I mentioned, the Sustainable Communities Initiative, nobody pays attention. It's got a name that sounds like gobbledygook, but in the second term, you're going to see plans issued throughout localities, throughout the country, dictating ways in which transportation spending can encourage suburbanites to move back to the cities. How? By stopping construction and repair on highways out in the suburbs and putting it instead into public transportation in the cities, trying to make it harder for people to go on that commute so they don't even think about moving to the suburb, or if they're there, push them back.
Stanley, last question. We have about 30 seconds. Agenda 21. Glenn has talked about this a lot, this UN initiative. It's basically this Obama plan that you describe on a global scale, right?
Right, but what I've tried to do is emphasize the homegrown version of this. This movement that Obama's been a part of is called the Regional Equity Movement. People need to learn about that because that's where the real threat is coming from. After all, Obama is a member of that movement. He's the President of the United States. The UN doesn't have any technical power over America. If Americans learned about this Regional Equity Movement, as I described it in the book, they would know where to put the pressure to stop all of this.
Yeah, well, Stanley, thank you so much. The book is called Spreading the Wealth, How Obama is Robbing the Suburbs to Pay for the Cities. Pick it up, and November 6th looms large. Needless to say, Stanley, thank you so much.